Okay, so let's continue creating this lesson plan template. I'm going to make our window a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. Okay, and what we're aiming for is one of two kinds of templates. Okay, and we do this because currently there is two sort of different versions of curriculum. One is we have the new K-6 curriculum, and we have the old or current grade 7 to 12 curriculum. Once all the curriculum gets developed in the same way, then we can use one template. But currently, we can't do that. So, what we've got here is for the new K-6 curriculum, we're going to create a template that has this top portion. Now, the only thing that's really going to be different between the K-6 folks and the 7 to 12 folks literally is this green section here. Okay, because on the current or old version, this is the green section right here. Okay, so you can see pretty much everything's exactly the same below that, and all obviously like above it as well. Okay, so and everything is made using tables. So what we're going to do here is we are going to, now that we've got it all set up perfectly, we're going to say insert a table. And this first table is literally just going to be a 1x1 table block. Okay. And so we're just going to type in topic in there. We can make it pretty and do some other fancy things with it in a little bit. Okay. And then what we always have to make sure is that when we're going to create our next table, that our insertion point, or that little flashy thing we call the cursor, which is actually not the cursor, it's called the insertion point, is flashing outside of that block or that cell or that table. Okay, and then the next one we're going to make is we're going to go insert a table, and we are going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 over, so 4x1, and it's going to look something like that. And then what we're going to throw in there is date. And again, whether you are K-6 or 7 to 12, you're going to do the same thing here. And then we're going to go subject. Okay. And we're going to go grade, which might seem like duh, but like duh for you, because it's like, I know what grade I'm teaching, Brad, but people who are going to be looking at this lesson plan, like a sub or an admin or me, may not be able to figure out what grade it is. So make sure you put that in there. Okay. And then on for grade, like, I mean, the most we're going to go is 12, right? So we don't need a lot, this cell right here to be so big. So I'm going to move it over a little bit, because right here, I want to type in class length. Okay. And what I mean is your class 20 minutes? Or is it 80 minutes, 90 minutes? So how many minutes do you have? And that's going to play in importantly later on. Right now, really mostly with maybe a few side comments, we are just interested in creating this template itself. Okay. All right. Now, the next part, again, clicking outside, having my insertion point here, is to create that green table that I showed you earlier. So that table is a table that it has a few things going on with it. So the first thing is that it is 3 across, and we can go 9 down. So it's a 3x9 table. Okay, so we're going to do that. And again, it might look really big, but remember, I got it magnified at 150%. So in here, we are going to type in organizing idea. Okay, and what we're going to do, and we're going to need to do this for 5 different things, is we're going to click, hold, and drag so that all of this row is highlighted. Then we're going to right click, and we're going to say merge cells. And that makes this whole cell just one big row. Okay, now we're going to do guiding question on the next row. And again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to click, hold, and drag across, right click, and merge cells. And I got a couple more of these for us to do. We're going to go learning outcome. Okay. And we're going to merge those ones. And we've got the ICT outcome, which is the technology outcome, which in K to 6, generally speaking, you're probably not going to have to use it. And if you don't, you can just delete that row. Okay. But just on the off chance that you might need it, we're going to leave it in there for now. Okay. So again, highlight, right click, and say merge cells. And we have one more to do. That's going to be merged for now. And we're going to go Bloom's level. And that's Bloom's taxonomy. And again, if that means nothing to you, it will as you progress through your education program. So we are going to go Bloom's level, highlight it all, right click, and go merge cells. Okay. Now there's some bottom ones here that we're going to do. This first one is going to be knowledge. Okay. And I'm going to center that. So I'm just going to come up here to my toolbar and I'm going to center it. Okay. The next one over is going to be understanding. Same idea. I'm going to center it. And the last one is going to be skills and procedures. And this again comes directly from the programs of study for K to 6. So skills and procedures. Okay. And I'll center that one. There we go. Okay. And you will hear throughout your program or when you're out in school, people talking about the cusps, and that's the knowledge, understanding, skills, and procedures. So cusp. Okay. So if you hear that, those words or that term, you'll understand what that means. Now, and then we've got 3. You could add more rows if you wanted, but I think for our purposes, 3 is enough. Okay, so again, this is for our K to 6 folks. Now, our 7 to 12 folks, you're going to do a very similar thing. So you're just going to do a table here that's got 2, and you're going to add these. And to get from outcomes down to ICT, all you're going to do is click here, and you're just going to hit enter or return about 2 or 3 times. Okay, and so you're just going to add these similar tables here. And again, if you look at this table here, it is just simply a 2x1 table. Okay, so and you're going to make 3 of those, and then that will be the equivalent of kind of doing what this is. Okay, all right, so the next thing that we need to do, again clicking down below here so it's outside, is we are going to insert another table, and that is going to be a 1x2, and in that top row we're going to type in learning strategies. Okay, and I don't think I need anything else there, but I'm going to hit enter, or we could do it this way. One of the 2 ways is that in brackets or below that, we can type in students will be able to, and I'm just going to go ... and put another bracket there. So what will students be able to do? So an example of this potentially is students will be able to independently create a slideshow. Students will be able to work collaboratively to present a slideshow or something like that. So what learning strategies you have here will depend on your outcome and how you plan on tackling that outcome in your lesson. So we'll leave that for now. We are going to create another table below it, and this table is simply going to be just a 1x1. So just a one square, and in there we're going to type an assessment. Okay, and I'm just going to go 1 down on it just so I have some room to type in there. Okay, and then I'm going to come down below that, and I'm going to add just again another 1x1, and I'm going to add in input. Okay, and that comes from Madeline Hunter, that word. But what input is, and we can just write this down as a reminder to ourselves, it's the vocabulary or the terms, phrases that students would need to know to understand your lesson. So imagine if you were taking a lesson or teaching a lesson on long division. They would need to know what a dividend is, what a divisor, what a quotient, all of those kinds of words they would need to know before they could understand the lesson. So this is the vocabulary that students are going to need to be successful in your lesson and follow along and all those kinds of things. Okay, so the next one below that is going to be another one where we stack it at 1x2. Okay, and we're going to call it displays and materials. Displays And just if you want to put a slash or something like that, it displays and materials, right? And what we're talking about here are things that you need to conduct your lesson. If you're teaching phys ed, you might need pennies, a soccer ball, pylons, all kinds of different things, right? If you're teaching art, you might need paintbrushes, paint, aprons, canvas, etc., right? Or if you're teaching a language arts lesson, you might need laptops and, they're something to write on, a pen, pencil, right? Or that kind of idea. So it's just so that you know what materials that either you will need or what students will need. Okay, so the next part down is the universal part. So again, if we look at these ones that we've just added, learning strategies, assessment, input, and displays and materials, again, that is right here in the tables that you 7 to 12 folks will do. So now we're going to add this set or this series of tables. Okay, so what we're going to do below here again is we are going to add or insert a table that is 2x1. Okay, and what I want to put in here is time, and because that is pretty small, I don't need this cell or this box to be that big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mouse over it, and I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to drag it just over to the right, and I'm going to leave it like so. Okay, and in this, well, not half anymore, but in this part, we're going to type in teaching points. Okay, and so that is the things that you're going to say, the things that you're going to do, the things you're going to have the students say or do, that type of idea. And on that one, we are going to center that one. Okay, so we've got that. Now you can see that we're at the bottom of a page here, and one of the things that I personally don't like is I don't like continuing things or having them overlap. So here's what we're going to do right now. I'm going to teach you a trick. So in between all of these tables, we have big spaces, right? 14 point. So what I would like you to do is highlight. Well, actually, we can start it right here. Highlight right there, and we're going to change it to an 8-point font or 8-point space. Okay. And without doing anything else other than that, we're going to come over here to the paint roller. I'm going to teach you how to use the paint format thing, the tool. So I'm going to double click, and you can see it kind of gets turned on because it stays blue. And everywhere that we want this font and a 8-point size, we're just going to go click, click, and we're going to go all the way down. And you can see how that sort of tightens things up for us so that it creates a little bit more space for us. When you don't want it to do that anymore, you can just click it again. I usually also hit escape. That really helps sometimes. So let's create another table here. Okay, I'm not going to change it to 8-point font. We'll do it at that one more towards the end again. Okay, so we're going to draw another table that looks like this. So again, with your insertion point here, you're going to go insert a table that is 2x1. And we already know what size we want over here. So again, I can come here, I can mouse over it so I get those arrows, click, hold, and drag it over there. And you can just eyeball it for now. Once we get more on a second page, we'll be able to scroll down and then line it up using our ruler. Okay, but I think it's pretty good there. All right, now for this one, we are going to type in here anticipatory set. Anticipatory set. And because that feels like a spelling test word, we're also going to put in the word hook. Okay, and then I'm going to go enter 1, enter 2, and maybe enter 3. And I'm going to type in the word chew. And behind that, I'm going to write in the word activity. Okay, now sometimes my chew or my activity is actually what my anticipatory set is. And if that's the case, then I just highlight it and get rid of the word chew. Okay, now the time is going to be something like this. I'm going to show a video. I'm going to do a quick little explanation, and that's going to take me 7 minutes. And I'll just type in, if you've got room for 7 min, you can. I usually just put 7 min. And if there's seconds involved, you might go, 23 seconds, something like that. Because again, remember, up here, you have only got a certain amount of time to conduct this lesson. So we got to kind of keep track of our time when we do that. So that's what the time box is for. Okay. Now that we're at the bottom of the page, we need to do one other thing, and that is to double click along this edge. Now, if you don't see this space between the pages like I do, you can just go back to view and you can say show print layout. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to double click right here along the edge, and that's going to give me a footer. And what I'd like you to add in there is your name. Okay. Now I'm just going to put in Mr. McD. You can put in your first last name, however you want to do that. You can put your teacher name in there. Then I'm going to have a space bar, and I'm going to insert the page number. Now, keyword, insert the page number. Okay, and I would like that page number to be in the bottom right-hand corner, which Google is kind of lying to you right now, because when you click that and go ahead and do it, it doesn't put it in the corner, does it? So what we're going to do is we are going to do a couple things here. We're going to highlight all this. It doesn't need to be big. So I'm going to make it 8 point. And then, if you want, oops, I didn't get it all there. I'm going to make it 8 point. And if you want to choose a different font, you can. I'm just going to stick with this kind of my favorite font right now. And then literally to get it over here in the right-hand corner is put your insertion point right in front of the 1 and then just tab it over. Okay. And you'll know you've gone too far if it goes onto a second line below the name. And if you do that, just hit backspace or delete and it'll fix that. And then once you're done with that, you can just click anywhere outside of the footer area and you'll see that it's there, and it'll be at the bottom, of course, of every page. Okay. Now we got just a little bit of some spacing issue here, right? So we're going to just highlight that one and make it 8 point. Okay. And right now, because it's not hanging over, this box is not hanging over to the next page, I can live with it. Now, it's going to expand, and there are going to be times where you have pages, 5-6 page lesson plans, and that's okay. You can move them down, or just click here and just go enter, 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 or however you want to do that. It's just my thing that I don't like them hanging over from one page to another. And what I mean by that is like this, I don't like it hanging over. So if that's the case, I usually just click in between and just move the whole thing right down. Okay. But again, personal preference. Okay. Now, we are going to make, so we've done the anticipatory set 1. Now what we're going to do is the exact same box, and we're going to call it segment 1. So I'm going to do one more, and then we can cheat and do some copy and pasting. So I'm going to go insert a table, and again, a 2x1. And already we can see that I can scroll, and right, I can see where my line is, and I can compare the two. Now they're pretty darn close. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to move that over. And again, I can just sort of eyeball it maybe a little bit like so. And I'm going to call that good. Okay. This again, remember, I'm going to call this one segment 1, segment 1. Okay. And segment 1, we're putting in brackets chunk. Okay. And again, I'll explain this in class, or some of your instructors might explain what this is all about. But again, we're just going to focus on trying to get this template done. And then I'm just going to go enter or return, return or enter 1, 2, 3 times. And then I'm going to put in the word chew activity again. Chew and then activity. Okay. So now that we've got this and we've kind of get a little bit of an idea how to do this, you can go ahead if you want and go do the table thing again. Or if you wanted to, you could click and hold and drag the whole thing, copy it, and then paste it 2 more times. So paste and paste. And then, of course, the only thing we need to do here is change the number of this, whatever segment that is, right? Now, the number of segments that you're going to have will be, again, dependent on how long you have for your class. If this is a 20-minute grade 1 social studies class, you're only going to have time for one segment. Your anticipatory set 1 segment, and then we're going to make one down here for closure. Okay. And again, of course, if you have an 90-minute high school lesson, you might be able to sneak in 3 chunks or segments, and that's okay. But if whatever number you need, so if you need less, you can just right click in any of the tables and say delete the table. Okay. And of course, if you need more, you can just copy and paste more and call it segment 4 or 5 or how many ever you need. Okay. And again, we'll tighten up this spacing a little bit later on. Now we're going to create one more of these tables, and I'll just do it manually again, just to make sure that anybody that needs that again, I'll go like that. Oops, my bad. So this is what happens when you don't click outside of the table. If you do then make that boo-boo, you can just go Control Z or undo, and you can just do it again here. So I'll just make it again this way. And of course, I'm going to drag that over. And this part over here is going to be called closure. Okay, so each lesson, like a good story, has a beginning, a middle, and end, right? And that's what your anticipatory set is your beginning. All the segments in the middle are, the body of your story, and the closure is just like the closure of a story or a closing paragraph, that kind of idea, right? So 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to type in the word chew again. And again, I'm just going to keep putting activity in there. Now, if as you use this lesson plan template and you're like, I don't need activity or chunk or whatever in there, you can just get rid of it. So again, let's click below here because we've got 2 more tables to make. Okay. So we're going to insert again a table, and this is going to be one on top of the other. So 1 by 2. And the first one we're going to call next class. Okay. And that is literally what do the students need to bring or do for next class? And what do you need to bring or do for next class? And you can put that in there in that box below it. And we're going to make 1 more of these. And again, if you want to copy and paste this one, you can. I think it's probably just about as easy just to do it real quick like this. And we're going to call this one teaching notes. Teaching notes. And in brackets, I'm going to put in the word reflection, because if you have me and I teach you how to do this, what I always tease about or talk about is the good, the bad, and the ugly. What went well? The bad to me usually is something I could just maybe tweak or change to make the lesson better. And then the ugly is with something that, I taught this lesson and I didn't like what happened, so I'm not going to do that anymore kind of idea. But you can't do teaching notes until you teach the lesson at least 1 time. So for our purposes, we're just going to have it on our template, but we're not going to have to fill it out. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do again is tighten up these spaces between these tables. So I am going to make that first one an 8.1, and I'm going to have to, oh no, I'm not going to have to, good. But I am going to double click the paint format roller, and that's just going to allow me to tighten up these spaces in between. Okay. And there we go. And I'm done there. So I'm going to click off of it. And again, you don't have to, I don't think, but I usually hit escape as well. And then the last thing that I would like you to do, and again, I'm just going to, before I say that, I'm just going to pop back to the old one. You can see that we've done the exact same process here. And now we're going to put in this link to the curriculum documents or the programs of study. So if you are so again, we're going to add the links here for the program of study that applies to us. So in this case, this is the K-6 one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy, well, I'll just show you, I'll just go to that curriculum document. And this is a good landing page if you want, or you can click the actual curriculum document. And this would be where I would be like a generic place that all my lesson plans can jump to. So I'm just going to copy that. And I'm just going to go K-6 program of studies. Maybe, I don't know why it's not doing its thing. There we go. Let's try that again. K-6 program of studies. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight it. Hold on for 1 sec here. I'm just going to highlight it. And then I'm going to link to it using the link insert link button. And I'm going to paste in that link that I copied and then just go apply. And then whenever I click on it, it will take me to, hopefully, the same page that I actually got it from. So that works. And then again, of course, if you are a 7 to 12 person, you can go to the 7 to 12 curriculum and do the exact same thing. So it looks like this. So you can see it's quite a bit different. And then you can go to programs of study, and then that is the link that you would copy for that. Okay. And so I'll put those both in the description in the video. All right. And I'll just close that up. And so again, here's where we're at. And I'm going to make this smaller now, just so that you can see like it all. I'll go to 100. Okay. So we're getting there. It kind of looks like the example, which was this one right here. Right. The only thing we have to do is add some color. Okay. A couple of other things too that I want you to make sure that you have is that in these teaching points boxes, I would really encourage you to make your font an 18-point font. Okay, 14-point would be the minimum. And because the bigger the text is, the easier it will be for you to read it after you put it down, find your place, and where you are in the lesson. If it's small text, it's hard to read. It's easy to lose your place, and that's whether you're a seasoned teacher or a beginning teacher. It doesn't matter. So I would recommend that you go with an 18-point font or a minimum of a 14-point font, double spaced. Okay. Now, as far as colors go, again, what we're going to do here is I'm going to make this one, I'm going to highlight it all, and then I'm going to use my toolbar and go to the paint can, and I'm going to choose a color from one of these rows. Now, it's going to be important to remember what row you're on. So I'm going to go with the third one down, maybe fourth one down, and I'm going to give that first row, or this thing, a red color. Now, in my example, it was green. So if you want it to be green, you can choose, a green color. It doesn't matter. Okay. But I just want you to remember that now I am in the 1, 2, 3, the fourth down. Now I want you to stay with these colors. Okay. Because those are complementary colors. So this is another one of the tables that needs color. So again, remember, fourth one down. I'm going to go with this little light red one. And then I'm going to work my way down, like in the example, to displays and materials, and then time and teaching points. So displays and materials gets a color. And again, what color you choose to use is up to you. That was the third one down, wasn't it? Fourth one down, yep. Okay, just double check that myself here. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. And what colors you use is up to you. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. Time and teaching points will need one too. So I'm going to highlight them both. And I will go with like some shade of purple. Okay. And then I'm going to scooch on down here, and I've got these last two to do. So where am I at here? How about some yellow, and how about some orange? Let's go blue instead. There. Okay. Now we can also make these bold. Okay. So you can highlight them, make them bold. I think that the titles need to be bolded, and you can do that on your own. I don't need to do that for all of them. I'd also bold these words in here if you want, so they stand out better. And the same thing for each one of these sort of title-y things here. Okay. Now, if you want to add more color, you can. It's totally up to you. But again, I would recommend that you stay away from a lot of color, because you're going to end up having to print these out. And printing and using lots of color toner or ink is expensive, as I'm sure you're well aware. So I keep trying to keep the color down to a bare minimum. Okay. And the other thing to remember about these colors is if you choose dark colors, then I'm just going to show you on this one. If you choose dark colors, right, those fonts get really hard to read. So if you're going to go dark with a dark color, then you make your font a light color. So I always call that dark on light or light on dark. So whichever way you want to go with that, and that's why I chose to go with lighter colors, because it's easier to see. Okay. And so keeping that contrast is important. And if you don't, you actually will lose marks for that. So, but essentially the lesson plan is done. Now, again, you 7 to 12 people will need to do the same thing. Okay. And how many pages it fits on does not really matter, because like I said, you may end up with 6-page lesson plans and sometimes even more. Okay. All right. So that concludes then the lesson plan template video. And if you've got questions about it, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'd be more than willing to help you finish this off. Okay. Thanks a lot. All right, so I've got all of my colors and my bolding done. Well, almost anyways. There we go. I think I'll make these bold too. Just end that off. And so you can see, I'll just scroll slowly so you can see kind of what the finished product looks like. Okay, I did move the K-6 up here just because this is where it's all happening. So I moved it up here. And you can see everything else I've got is bolded. And that's what it should look like when you are done. So anyways, like I always say, got questions, reach out to me. I'd love to give you help. Okay, thanks.